You're on mute.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Hi, Yvonne.
Hello. Yes, you can lead us
All right.
in a prayer in your local language.
All right. Let's pray. Baba Feina Nobelwe Go Kaisenlu Di Kaisenlu Gada Seno Moments Go Baba Kiwe Ko Pan-Africanism Kia Vi Kantala Wiza Santa Kalu Vi Akantala Lila Go Baba Kiwe Kayam Pantalaya Azu Katayama Gowe Belufin Gabelwe Ba Gabelwe Kiwen Gabelwe Fuin Gabelwe Kaluziaka Kamadianka Talayasi Gufuin Kailu Godiantala Adiakata Guifuyuba Adiaka. Amen. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Heavenly Father, as we are gathered here, your presence, O God, that we call upon your Holy Spirit, O God, to be with us. Father, O God, we are starting this gathering, O King of Glory, by calling your name, O God. Your word says that you are the beginning and the end. That, Father, from the beginning of this union, from the beginning of this meeting to the end, O God, you shall take control in the mighty name of Jesus. Father, for those who did not hear me, for those who did not understand me, that I prayed in your name. I pray that may you bless us. I pray that may you open our memories, O God. I pray that, Father, may every idea, O King of Glory, that we are about to share, O King of Glory, it is going to go viral. And we pray that, O King of Glory, may it cause impact in the life of everyone that is watching us in the mighty name of Jesus. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for gathering us here today. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Yes, thank you very much. You can continue with your report, and you have 2 minutes to present your report.
All right, thank you very much, Yvonne. Cultural domination led to the depersonalization of African people. It falsified their history and destroyed their customs and tradition. This includes the African language. We have dressing style. We have traditional systems of government, just to name a few. So in an effort to build continental unity, the Cultural Charter of the African Union decided to implement or show the importance of culture and tradition as an important tool for African unity. So we all know that there is a need to reawaken the African consciousness, especially to culture and tradition. So it will go a long way, first of all, discourage the white culture and also promote African solidarity and unity. So we know that culture has a long way or has a role to play in the promotion of peace and solidarity. So harnessing the potential of African culture and tradition to create global economic opportunities and raise awareness of Africans. African massive contribution to modern life and global culture. This can be done by having common determination to strengthen the understanding among African people. There should be a cultural cooperation and integration among our states in order to meet the aspiration of our people to see brotherhood and solidarity reinforced and integrated within the greater cultural unity which transcends ethnic and national boundaries. Africans should be aware that African culture is meaningless unless it plays a full part in the political and social liberation structure and in the rehabilitation and the unification effort. Music and fashion are good example for promoting unity and solidarity among African people and also create global impact. Many modern industries have evolved from ancient African tools, and many other types of musics have been adopted. We have many youths coming up with so many impactful music, especially in Cameroon, reflecting their cultures, especially from the different zones that they are coming from. On the other hand, the modern fashion industry often borrows very heavily from African culture, especially in design. You can see the latest African regalias. It has been enhanced, especially when it comes to the dressing style. Today, music and fashion industry undoubtedly owe an immense debt for Africa of gratitude to Africa's culture and creativity. It therefore becomes evident that the rich culture of Africa has only contributed to continental integration, but also continues to sustain development in many societies. So therefore, the collective consciousness of opportunities towards the potential of African culture and tradition resources can go a long way to reinforce the pride of Africans. An integral part of achieving sustainable unity in promoting social solidarity. In order to re-establish social solidarity in Africa, a key step would be to find a way for Africans to revisit their cultural and traditional origins, first of all. And this, in effect, means emphasizing the importance of traditional, first of all, Africans, especially youth, we need to go back to our culture, going back to our roots. So in all, African traditional culture could help shape a collective sense of peace, justice, and solidarity that we need to build a peaceful and a united continent. The promotion of peaceful culture and tradition among societies can facilitate our unity and solidarity among African people. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Keisha. Charlene from Ghana. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. So enjoy the rest of the call. So up next, you're going to have our brother Sulemono. Hope I just pronounced your name well. Sulemono from Ghana. Brother, can you unmute yourself? Yes, you only have 3 minutes to present your report.
Okay, good afternoon, Madam everyone. Today, I love Black people family before. Hello.
Yes, we can
Hello.
hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Let me greet. I love Black people family before I continue with my presentation. But then sometimes you people have difficult to pronounce it. It's Sulemono. That's the name.
Right.
Today, let's mind this thing about the role of African culture and tradition in promoting unity and solidarity. So let me just go straight to the note and then. As we all know that there are no human beings or group of people without culture or traditions, into bracket values or customs. Traditions or culture refers to how a group of people live their life on the planet. It is based on physical and practice, both seen and then unseen values. As Black people known today, times are called Africans, as we were named by the Europeans, to bracket white people or light skin or less melanin people. All Africans share the same or similar values or culture practice as a people. But today, because of false indoctrination by our enemies, we are divided in the form of languages, geographical locations, religious basis, political, social, and Africans have the same spirit or deity, which unites us as a people. The only difference among us is the twisting of tongues to produce a meaningful sound to the listener known as language. But if you really understand the language of other people and the customs that they practice as a people or tribe, you will realize that we are the same people and there is no need for us to divide ourselves as we see today. Today, we claim our forefathers were illiterate and we are educated. And we can see that we are the same, which calls for us to unite and develop the former Pan-Africanist dreamt of. For example, Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana was then fighting for the entire African continent and not only Ghana, and the unity among us. Now, let me emphasize my point on our culture and how it unites us as a people. Our cultural values as people and the most civilized on this planet before the introduction of culture. In our culture, we are having values like welcome any stranger and treat them well for you don't really know who they are. We have to respect and help elders or anyone who needs your support. We used to eat together as a family friends. We knew the role of husband, wife, and child. We were united at the same God, all the same deity, but different sounds or languages. We knew that adultery and fornication is a sin, but not a permanent sin as taught in foreign culture or religious basis today.
Yes, you have.
A human being or animal in the house, but
yes, you have 30 seconds.
How many minutes? Okay. It is my time. So all what I'm saying is, we knew all whatever we are teaching today in our various religions or societies as good moral. So if you look at the culture of Africans and how it can promote us, I think when we go back, it will help us because in everything, even when you come back, we don't separate, we don't discriminate. So if we go back, a language you speak, so far as you are a human being, African values do recognize you. And for that matter, you need to be treated well. It doesn't matter who you are. So I think that going back to our culture or our tradition, that will help us more than where we find ourselves right now. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Yes, thank you very much, Noro from Ghana. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. Up next, you're going to have Monsurat Oladiti from Nigeria. Yes, Monsurat, can you unmute yourself? Yes, you're on mute.
Oh. Hello
yes.
there.
Yes, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Yes, you have
I love Black people.
Your report.
Okay. It's okay. Speaking to the topic on our platform. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
The role of African culture and tradition in promoting unity and solidarity among African people. My answer is yes. African culture and tradition is the best in promoting unity and solidarity towards sustainability of African people. However, if all the following times is appropriately put in place, the social development, economic development, political and environmental. However, all these points were not properly maintained by our leader, which lead to poor development in Africa. I use my country as a case note, Nigeria. Let's look at African culture. African culture is a system and ways of performance in one's activities to maintain a stability and sustainability of a retained action. Likewise, tradition, which is the way of doing things towards the mission and fashion of operation of norms, or one's norms and attitude in orientation towards belief and attitude of our society. But towards the contemporary of what culture and belief, the world has come to a global village. It has come to dilute the African culture inappropriate things. Being involved for African culture to the extent of using it to the maximum African culture. I want to use the phrase or subheading of discipline and patriotics. When discipline leads to, it means when a leader, who leads you matters in life, but home, both home in the society, it matters because they determine your discipline, growth, success, and the whole likes. But if you don't want to fall in life, find a discipline. Nowadays, it's because African culture and tradition is not used properly among our leaders to bring solidarity and strong stability in Africa. In African culture, discipline serves as a priority in Africa. In everything, in which you have wisdom, you have knowledge and understanding, integrity, valor, a means of livelihood and money. But our leader or ruler does not follow this cultural belief again. Instead, they believe in money and power, which now lead to tribalism among our political leaders. Going through the panorama of political trend in Nigeria now, all what does not use to bring problem are the one causing a lot of unrest among the people, like lack of moral, integrity, religion, tribe you belong, and money. In the issue of African culture, tradition, if we follow it as African people, all this can be coped and provide solution for true wisdom, knowledge, and mutual understanding among us. Hence, a major and significant role of sustainability and promotion of unity will sustain African country. Under patriotics,
Yes, you
love,
have
respect,
30
one's
seconds
duty
left.
towards country is also right. Okay. My observation is that indigenous needs to protect the essence of our heritage through crying out by our youth, which is now I Love Black People is an example. 2, identify our identity as a country is another point in Africa to maintain our culture. Having fallout does not give our guests the effrontery to intervene in our dispute. We
Yes,
should be giving respect to our boundary. Thank you.
Yes, thank
I
you
love
very
Black
much.
people.
Thank you very much, Monserrate Olayoditi. She's from Nigeria. Thank you very much. So up next, you're going to have our brother from Kenya. Njogu Mungai. Yes, Njogu Mungai, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. I can get you.
Yes, you only
Uh,
have 3 minutes to present your report.
Okay, mine will just be short.
Okay.
And thank you for the chance and opportunity. And I think I based my presentation on the general topic on Pan-Africanism, regardless of culture. But in general, when we talk of Pan-Africanism, and I think this is what is the core point of the movement. Pan-Africanism is the idea that all people of Africa descent, regardless of where they are in the world, they have a common interest and should be unified. And regardless of the shape or the variety of Pan-Africanism taken, all the African should have one common stand, one common goal, and one common vision, as one people from the same motherland, the same origin, and the same context. As referring maybe to the Ubuntu statement, I am because we are because I am. That brings us to a point that we are all one, and who we are because of the oneness that we have as Africans. And this should be our drive to unity. And basically, speaking, Kenya will be great if Ghana is great. Zimbabwe will be great if DRC is great. Nigeria will also be great if Mozambique is. And this is in the context of oneness as Africans, as one people not characterized by the artificial borders, which we know in all senses that they do not belong to us. And when we talk about the borders, we should ask ourselves, why is it that in Kenya we have Swahili, the same Swahili is spoken in Congo, also spoken in Tanzania? Why is it that we have Maasais in Kenya also, and still we have them in Tanzania? Why is it that we have Bantus in the southeast of Cameroon and throughout Central, Southern, Eastern, and Southern Africa? Yes. How is it that we will find also the Swazis in Swaziland and also in South Africa? This is because we are one people. We are people of the same context, fragmented and separated artificially by the artificial borders. And these borders are not out of our choice. They are borders which were created during the Berlin Conference, the 1884. And in my take, I see the borders are meaningless as long as we uphold our African unity as one people. We move in one direction. If we talk of we want to achieve something, we don't just take it specifically that it is in Kenya we want development. If we take it in Kenya that we want development, then I will be leaving behind maybe our neighbors in Tanzania. And as I said, in Kenya we have the Bantus, we'll find them maybe in Tanzania, but then we'll just be measuring our developments in an confined area. And I think we should be measuring as Africans. Maybe we focus on the Agenda 2063, which brings the whole African continent in one as one unit of development. If we talk of maybe mobile coding, I just do it. We can have one satellite that will be connecting us as one people. Because currently I'm from Kenya, but currently I'm in Zimbabwe. But it will be a challenge for me to call my people in Kenya because there are two different codes. You see, when I go in Uganda, then I cannot contact a person from Zimbabwe. Why? And we are all in one continent. It would be better if we can come together and we focus our mind in moving in the same direction. And I think that is what we should do, regardless of the boundaries that were made and making us that we are different. because you will find that Kenyans might be not wanting to associate with the maybe people from Tanzania because they are not Kenyans. But in real sense, we are people of the same. I heard someone talking of people of, I think, said of people of less melanin. Yes, if we are all, because I'm black, a person from Zimbabwe is black, heading to Ghana is black, and also we have some other Africans in the upper part, the Arabs. But all of us, we are in the same continent, and we should be united, and also considering those who are outside the continent. I think that's what we should uphold as Africans, and we move in that context when we talk of Pan-Africanism. And maybe in conclusion, the time is getting. In conclusion, I would say that Africa is our only home where we can run for safety if there is any dangers, where we have as our heritage. And this calls for us all to unite together. And this can only be achieved through us realizing that I'm what I am because of who we are. Yes, Africans, we have to join together and speak in one voice of unity. And the voice belongs to those, when we talk of the future we are talking of the Agenda 2063. Any future belongs to those who believe the beauty of their dreams. If we then believe in the beauty of the Agenda 2063, then we should be focused on them. And then the beauty of the dream will belong to us if we believe and we work on it. And I know the Ubuntu spirit is still working in us. That's why we can converge here in the online meeting from different parts of the continent. And also the spirit of Kwame Nkrumah, Muammar Gaddafi, Ahmed Ben Bella, and all the other true Pan-African fathers who lived before us. The spirits are still alive. And if we keep them awake, we'll have to succeed at what we have. And I'll conclude with a line in the AU anthem, which says, "O sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life." Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. But there is a question for you from Curtis Murphy. He was asking, did I hear Goju say if you in Kenya you cannot contact someone in Uganda? Maybe you can make some clarification about that.
Oh, sure, you can, but then the charges will be higher than normal. Maybe referring from here where I am currently in Zimbabwe, if I have to contact my family in Kenya I can contact maybe in 10 minutes, I can use 1 Kenya shillings. That is very insignificant when you get to compare it to dollar. But now contacting them from here directly in a direct call, then it will be very expensive, maybe in 1 minute close to $2 USD. And yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the coding. Also, the call will not get through as don't know how to explain it, but it will be a bit expensive. Maybe the only platform that we can get to embrace is using WhatsApp. And I remember sometimes back, we had a discussion in the group, the WhatsApp group, the Pan-African WhatsApp group, and we were saying, why don't us get to embrace the African platforms? We might be having other platforms that we can be embracing as Africans, and they also bring development to us. And as we talk of this on how we can come and we measure on one development, we get to develop ourselves in one way. Maybe you can opt rather using the different codes. To Kenya, you have +254, coming to Zimbabwe, you have +263, going to Ghana, maybe +260, going to Uganda, +254. All those codes are irrelevant because talking from Kenya and Uganda and Tanzania, we are just bordering. How do we have these codings? How is it that coding from Uganda to Kenya or Kenya to Tanzania is very expensive? And we are just bordered with artificial borders, which we talked about, because in real sense, they are not there. We can maybe think of how we can maybe have a single satellite from here I can contact someone from Ghana directly. The same way I will do in Zimbabwe to from Pindura to maybe Harare. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I think you just made it clear. And thank you very much for the presentation, even the qualification.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I'm not sure if Clyde Fowler would like to say something. You can unmute yourself. Yes, Clyde Fowler from Guyana. Clyde Fowler, can you hear us? Yes, I think maybe he has an issue with the network. While we are waiting for the Pan-African history course with Nana Akua, you can still write maybe questions that you will would like to ask her. She's joining in a few minutes. Then after Nana Akua with the Pan-African healthcare class, we are going to have Dr. Wright Irene with the Pan-African history class. And don't leave the meeting. We still have like a lot of things to learn from them. Yes, if there is any other person who would like to say something about their country or culture, they can just raise up their hands and we will unmute them. Yes, so if you are new, like we have the Global Green Book edition, the 2022 edition. If you didn't purchase any, I'm going to share the link in the comment section. Yes, I can see our brother Curtis Murphy. Yes, you can unmute yourself. Yes, Grace, you can unmute yourself if you would like to say something.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. In this part of the world, it's good afternoon, almost evening now. There is only one thing which I find that I would like to take part in. You see, we have just coming from International Women's Day. We just celebrated International Women's Day, that is on 8th of March. Now, if we look at that, and then we compare African woman, what was African woman before colonialism? Who was she? What did she do in society? We will find out that the difference between a Western world woman and an African woman, the difference is very great. African woman was considered a leader. African woman was a top politician. African woman was a soldier. she was respected as a woman. She took part in a lot of things. Children respected her. Men respected her. The society respected the woman because she was the mother of them all. Now, if you compare with a woman in Western world, at that time, you find that a woman in the Western world, she could not speak. She was pushed into the kitchen. A woman in Europe, she could not do anything, otherwise she would be oppressed. Let me put it straight, a woman in the Western world was oppressed woman. Now, during the colonialism,
Yes,
during the colonialism,
you only have 1 minute to. Yes, you have
Can
1
you hear
minute.
me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. So during the colonialism, the colonial master came up with his own laws and rules. African woman was stripped of all that responsibility. A man was put up in front. A man was introduced to education while a woman was taken behind, was left behind. Now, due to this, Pan-Africanism, men and women, we must realize our tradition, how it was, if we want our Africa to be one. If we need to remove all these borders, let's do it and take our woman, our soldier woman, to be a person in front. Not to say, because you are a woman, you are not going to do what man is doing. That is un-African. African is putting his woman in front. So this is the difference that I wanted to make, to say, since we are coming from celebrating International Women's Day, we thank the Europeans for fighting her position, because and the rules came with colonial masters. African women did not have a right to land. Her land was taken away. It was only by man who could get land. So today, a woman can also get land. So this is what I wanted to contribute, to say Africa is a place where we don't have gender issues to say this one is lower than this one, and the man is greater than this. We are all looking at each other as one. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, our sister Grace. Thank you for that message. And we are going to start the Pan-African Healthcare class with Nana Akua. If you would like to receive a shout out from her, you can turn on your video. She likes to see the beautiful faces, the beautiful Black faces.
Hello, everyone. Good day, good afternoon. Yes, I love to see beautiful Black faces smiling back at me. Peace and love, everyone. Thank you all, Clyde, Nathaniel. Thank you, Mama Grace, for your words. I got to hear a few as I was just coming on. And Nkomo, and is it, oh, Aunt Samana. I know that name. I know Aunt Samana. Okay. Hello, and Chris, and oh, Al-Kibalon. Okay, that must be an organization. Great and fun. Okay, Mungai. Okay, I think I caught everyone. I think somebody else's camera's on, but I don't see them. But okay, wonderful. Oh, there's Kurt. Hey there. I get to see your face today. Thank you. Okay, well, greetings, everyone. I am glad you have joined us today. I want to talk about, we kind of got off track last week, but I want to make sure this is the 8th week. So I'm going to make sure we cover the information that is for this week. And this is our detox and cleansing section. And I don't know if, I think a lot of your faces are familiar, but if you have heard this part before, I kind of want to give some extra information as well. Yvonne, if you'll let me share the screen, I think I have the information pulled up.
Yes, you're allowed.
It is just, just have to straighten it out now. Now it's just cricket. Let me turn it. Okay, so we know that cleansing and detox is very important. It's very popular these days, especially here in the States. Hopefully it is important and excuse me, given importance everywhere, whatever part of the world you're in. But what I want to share is that eating foods, the healthiest, most natural foods, is very important. Using healing herbs, natural remedies, homeopathics, essential oils, flower remedies, all of the things that we talked about, getting good healthy proteins and carbs and water and all of your vitamins and minerals and things that we've talked about throughout this course. In addition to all of those things, we also have to make sure that the body is properly cleansing and detoxifying itself. We have to make sure that what we're doing is not going to be detrimental, that we are not just constantly putting in, but that we're also allowing the body to cleanse and purge and release what is not useful, what is not helpful, containing vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients that the body needs. So we want to make sure that cleansing and detoxification is a part of your daily routine as well. So we're going to talk about the basic definition at just when we talk about stress, when we talk about healing, all of these things are also, I always like to start with the definition because we have to know exactly what it is we're referring to. So we'll give a quick definition of detoxification, of purging. We'll talk about different ways in which to do it internally and externally. And then we'll talk about the paths of elimination and how to cleanse those. So let's start with what is detox and cleansing. Usually these words or these terms are used interchangeably. So you'll hear me kind of go between one or the other, and they're very similar, but with just slight differences. So detoxification is the process of removing a poisonous or harmful substance or hazardous substance from the body, or the neutralization or mitigation of its effects. So even if we take in things that are harmful to the body, if at least we have a way or a means to neutralize or control how harmful it would be to the body. This happens in food poisoning. Say you take in something that is poisonous, knowingly or unknowingly, whether it's a food you think is okay, you think who prepared it is fine, the dishes is good, but it doesn't agree with your body. What we then usually have to do is put into the body something that will neutralize those harmful effects, like an activated charcoal or other substances that will absorb the toxins and allow it to be moved out of the body. That's an example of detoxification. Cleansing is the process of making something thoroughly clean, washing it, cleansing it by water, ridding the body of anything unhealthy or unnecessary, right? So this could be us doing a juice fast, right? We are putting in what is going to flush out waste or toxins from the body, where we're putting in other substances that the body has to break down and digest and send all of the nutrients one place or the other, and then filter out what is not good to the large and small or the large intestines. But we are basically doing what is going to cleanse or flush. Some of the things we'll talk about, especially for like the liver and the kidneys, are good examples of that, where we're actually putting in water and juices and substances that are going to flush or wash or clean the body. And we know that whatever cleansing or detoxification we use, we know that there are certain side effects or certain symptoms of cleansing the body. When we are ridding the body of different toxins or harmful substances, we know that the body will have a reaction to that. So we know that certain things like body aches, headaches, body odor, bad breath, weakness, purging, skin rashes, fatigue, these are all very common symptoms and signs of detoxification. So within reason, we should expect those things, and we know that that's just part of the process. We know that we might use herbs, homeopathics, foods in detox diets. We might fast from certain foods or fast using different juices or herbal teas. We do detox baths, whether full body baths or foot baths. There might even be touch therapies that are used to detox the body of stagnant energy, of tight muscles, or stress that is built up in a particular part of the body. So different touch therapies like massage may be used to cleanse or detox the body. And then skin brushing. So there are these and perhaps some more ways of cleansing or detoxification. So let's talk about what a path of elimination is. So we know that different organs in the body have the job of filtering toxins. And the 5 more commonly referred to paths of elimination are the kidneys, liver, colon, skin, and the lungs. And we're going to focus on each of these in terms of discussing what things we can do to cleanse or detox these paths of elimination. I'm going to skip this handout. I don't love this handout. Okay, what did I do? So let's talk about the liver. So we know that the liver is a very, very resilient organ, right? The liver is responsible for cleansing and filtering out the blood. It is an organ that can regenerate itself, right? So it's very resilient, but we know that it takes a beating when we eat the wrong foods, when we overload the body with different types of drugs, whether it's pharmaceutical or whether it is recreational drugs, or whether it's alcohol that we consume or overconsume, but the liver really takes a beating. And thank God, it is something that is very resilient. However, it will fail you and it will cause problems if we abuse it and do not properly cleanse or detox the liver. So these handouts here list some of the foods that are good for detoxing the liver, okay? So we know we come in contact with different pollutants, and we have to cleanse them out. So, and I really think I want to start on the right side. So if we know that we've gotten in some heavy metals, whether it's through food or the utensils that we use to prepare our foods or cook our foods, aluminum pans, aluminum utensils, if it is mercury in the, if it is some of the print or newsprint in certain areas of the world that maybe still have certain metals in paints or certain industrial materials or items, even in some makeup, eyeliner, mascara, things of that nature. There's so many ways that we introduce heavy metals into the body. And so cilantro is excellent for removing these toxins, these heavy metals from the liver. You can eat it, you can add it into your juices. If you do smoothies, you can add it into that. Of course, cook with it, prepare your meals, sauces, dressings, salads, and such. Add cilantro into your diet. It's really good for the liver, especially with flushing out heavy metals. We know that beets are very good for the liver. It purifies the blood, tonifies the liver. You can juice it, you can eat it. I know some people can only eat it if it's pickled beets. If you do that, what I would suggest is to pickle them yourself and do apple cider vinegar, and whatever the processing time for pickling a vegetable or a food is, as opposed to buying them already as pickled beets, because then I would question whether they've added color to it, what type of vinegar they've used, and what other process they've used. But if you can do, even if you do freeze-dried beet powder, get a natural version of that. And again, if you juice it and you can tolerate it, great. I always suggest adding the greens into it. I'm not a fan of beets. However, I used to do fasting workshops every season. And I would always include a beet juice as part of the juice that we did throughout the day. And I would always add beet greens to it. I didn't love it, and usually during those 4 times a year at the workshop is the only time I would usually eat it. But if you do have an affinity to the taste of beets included, it's definitely going to be good for your liver and for your blood. Turmeric is excellent. It's an anti-inflammatory. It is an immune booster. It's good for the skin, has a lot of uses. And actually, the reason that it is good for the skin is because it cleanses and detoxes the liver. So anything that is cleansing the liver, purifying the blood, is going to impact the skin. So for many reasons, turmeric is also good to add to your diet. If you are working with fresh turmeric, however, it will stain up everything in your kitchen, your hands, your blender, your counter. So you will be very careful to line your table or your counter, wear gloves on your hands, because actually working with fresh turmeric is, it will stain. Avocado, the food avocado, the fruit avocado is also really good for the liver. If you can do actual avocado, that's great. Some people make it into guacamole and do other things with it. But actual fresh avocado is going to be your best option. It gives you some essential fats or healthy fats in addition to protecting the liver and cleansing the liver. Garlic is a powerful immune booster, fights off infections of all kinds, bacterial, viral, parasitic. Garlic is very excellent to use in your foods as a supplement, and all the above. But we know the taste of garlic can be overpowering, so you'll have to adjust that based on your needs and your lifestyle, and whether you're around people and in their face talking, because we know garlic has a strong aroma. Lemon water, we know, is also a good way to cleanse and detox the liver as well. Room temperature water is definitely going to be your best option for this, in squeezing fresh lemon into the water. And then these other foods here to the left are also excellent liver cleansers that you can use in whole form, or juicing, or cooking in your as your part of your meals. I would say to lightly cook them. Steaming or sauteing is always going to be your best options if you're trying to get the nutrients from a vegetable, especially. We do not want to overcook it. And let me not get too long-winded with liver. This handout just gives a 3-day liver cleanse. It tells you what to consume throughout the day, so I won't go through that. Here is a liver juice, which includes the beets, as I've mentioned before. And to make it a little more palatable, yes, adding things like carrots, lemon, cucumber, ginger, these are going to make it a little easier to take in, unless you just love raw beets. But that is a very acquired taste. Here's another recipe for a drink. This is a smoothie one. This includes your ginger, parsley, lemon, pineapple, cucumber, celery, and this will be good for the liver. But this is also containing a lot of diuretic fruits and vegetables that will be good for the kidneys as well, which I think we'll get to shortly. Turmeric, I've mentioned already. This just gives some additional information. And then on to the kidneys. So we know that water, celery, cucumbers, parsley, lemon, watermelon, these are all very good dietetic foods that flush the kidneys. If I was adding other herbs, I would say things like buchu, uva ursi, juniper berry. These are all good for cleansing the kidneys. The colon. Most people, when they think of cleansing and detoxification, only think about the colon, but know that all of these other paths of elimination, all of these other organs are responsible for filtering waste from the body. So though we can think of the colon more readily, more easily, because we have bowel movements daily, we have to give all of them as much effort in cleansing as we do the colon. But having a bowel movement every day, at least twice a day, is also something, while people know of it, still don't necessarily put work into making sure it happens. And it's absolutely crucial. We eat 2, 3, 4 or more times a day. We have to eliminate daily. And at the bare minimum once, but if you can at least do twice a day, I think that's a good elimination practice. Flax seeds, alfalfa, aloe vera, peppermint, spirulina, wheatgrass, chickweed, Cascara sagrada, fennel seeds, mangoes, probiotic yogurts, fermented foods, certain organic fruits. These are the fiber-rich fruits, the ones that have a lot of fiber and not the sweet fruits. I'm not really a proponent of using the sweeter fruits to cleanse the colon, just because they are higher glycemic fruits. So you really want to do more of the apples, pears, citrus, cherries, berries, things of that nature for your fruits that help cleanse the colon. This chart is important. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but this is important because you have to know what your stool looks like. This is how you develop and this is how you understand the condition of your poop and whether your body is really releasing as it should. If it is somewhere between, I'll say 4, 5, or 6, but these are what you want your bowel movement to look like. You don't want it to look like hard pieces, lumps or bumps or nugget pieces. You don't want it to be completely watery and runny and liquidy. You want it to be formed. You want it to be easy to pass out of the body and to break up easily as it's coming out of the body and hitting the water or wherever you're defecating into. But this Bristol stool chart is just a way of you putting, shapes to your stool and knowing the condition of it, whether you need to alter how you're eating, what you're eating, and when you're eating it. I don't think this handout doesn't have, I think, the information about the other passive elimination. So let me share that. When we're talking about the lungs, we want to make sure that we're doing breathing exercises, that we are not going into environmental spaces that have a lot of environmental toxins. We want to use certain herbs like lobelia and mullein, and there's so many that are not coming to mind now because I'm trying to rush through. But we want to make sure that we're doing herbs that are going to strengthen the lungs and that we're doing our breathing exercises so that we are releasing all of the toxic gases from the lungs so that we can breathe really freely and effortlessly. And thank God we don't have to think about breathing. It's one of those both involuntary and voluntary actions, right? But we want to make sure that we strengthen that lung organ muscle so that it can really help to circulate oxygen throughout the body properly, and so that we can move about and do things we need to do without getting winded, without not being able to function or catch our breaths. We know that certain homeopathic remedies like antimonium tart is excellent for people with asthma and other respiratory conditions. Elderberry and so many other elecampane and other herbs that are really good for the lungs. We have to do this. And especially if you do have chronic sinus infections, if you are asthmatic, if you get chronic bronchitis, anything that does compromise your lungs or your respiratory system, on a regular basis, do some type of cleansing of the lungs. Make sure that every night you do some type of conscious breathing exercises, and take any one of the herbs that are good for the lungs on a regular basis, just to strengthen the lungs. And then the skin, and this is definitely not the updated packet. I do apologize. I'm always struggling to find these packets. I need to erase, because what comes up is not the modern ones. And I think I've been naming them too close to the same name, so I can't find the packets that have the updated information. But the skin, I had also put in a handout to the more updated packet of different skin healing herbs and foods that are good for the skin. We know the skin is our largest organ. It is our barrier. It is our protection. So we know that we need to do things to cleanse and detox the skin. The dry skin brushing is excellent for that. We can do that as part of a cleansing fast or detox, or we can do it on a daily basis. It's a dry, natural bristle brush that we use to do these gentle swoops up the body, up the legs, up the arms, up the abdomen, across the back. But it helps to cleanse any combining words, any dry or dead skin cells from the body. And then it helps to invigorate and stimulate the lymphatic system, which we know is tied to our immunity and our ability to fight off disease and infections and illness. And so in addition to, wanting to have beautiful elastic skin that's free of blemishes and marks and acne and things of that nature, skin health is very important. So we know, again, these same herbs that cleanse the liver and purify the blood are going to be excellent for the skin as well. So all of the things that we've talked about for the liver, and then maybe some other herbs like sandalwood, saffron, red clover, yellow dock, burdock. All of these are good. Milk thistle. These are all good for the skin and cleansing the skin. And Yvonne, are we on our regular schedule stopping at 11:15?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's fine. Oh, I'm about to forget my own schedule. Yeah, we got to stop at 11:15 because I have 11:30 appointment. How about that? I'm doing too much today. So what I usually put in this last section is so that we can at least discuss a bit about the importance of diabetes and hypertension. So I included in this packet these pieces of information because so many people, African people, Black people, because of our diets, because of our lifestyles, some because of heredity, we suffer from these situations. So we know that following the glycemic index is important. We know that we must eat foods that are low glycemic foods, meaning that the food will not spike our blood sugar and cause the pancreas to have to send in or increase its glucose to balance out things. So we know that certain foods are higher glycemic foods, certain foods are lower glycemic foods, and anything over 70, we really want to avoid. So this is something you would just sort of study, commit to memory. Certainly if there are foods that are higher, you would know to limit those foods, or if you're able to cut them out, great. But just to learn about the glycemic index is very important for Black people. We traditionally, some of our foods or a lot of our foods are starch-based. And some of us who are heavier around the middle are more likely to develop diabetes and such. So this is very important to master. High blood pressure is another issue. Sometimes because of stress level and just having a hectic life and a lot of responsibilities and a lot of stressors, but also because of diet, also because of lifestyle or lack of enough activity or physical activity and good habits. So this handout is really good because it gives you an indication of what is a healthy blood pressure right? And then it also tells you some of the information that you'll need in terms of what vitamins, what minerals, what herbs, what foods that you should include, or what things you should avoid. So we know the no foods are the obvious, high salt foods or high fat foods, but we know that apples and avocados and bananas and broccoli and fish and grapes and oats and orange juice. I still always dilute my orange juice, it's just too sweet. And water, these are all healthy foods that we should include, and certain vitamins and minerals that are listed here. Hawthorn berry, juniper berry, garlic, these are all herbs that we know are good to add into our diet. So if you don't have the packet, and I think I probably did not post it this week, yeah, I've not been good about that lately, but feel free, I will post it, probably not today, tomorrow. But if you're not in the WhatsApp group, you can also feel free to email me and I'll send you the packet. And I'll be sure to send the packet that has that additional information with the herbs for the skin and the lungs that were missing from this packet. So thanks for joining, and I bid you good health and peace, and I'll see you next week.
Yes, thank you very much, Nana Akua. And I just shared your email in the comment section for handouts. If there is anyone who would like to receive a handout from her, she can send her an email. Yes, thank you very much, Nana Akua, for a wonderful lecture about cleansing and detoxification. So time is not on our side. We are going to continue with Dr. Wright Irene in the Pan-African History course. Yes, Dr. Irene Wright, you're welcome.
Hi, Yvonne. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you are. So I posted something that was an alternative to up to Thomas Sankara on our curriculum. And essentially, this is the book. Okay. Can you all see? Look I have a still frame here. Okay, hold on. I started touching things. I don't know. Can you all see me? Like moving? Okay, all right. Because I see like a still frame picture of myself. I don't know what that is. Okay. So this is the text actually that is in your curriculum when I address Thomas Sankara, but something great. I actually was able to post the audio version of this book, which is online, okay? And for those of you all, yes, I see someone saying she needs one. Yes, because we cannot do this work and talk about ideological development and struggle without recognizing the contribution and the role, the critical role that African women play both in the diaspora and on the continent. And this is a small book that has speeches, about 3 or 4 speeches from Thomas Sankara, the notable Pan-Africanist and freedom fighter from Burkina Faso. I'll give you a little of his bio, and where we are in the course is we're looking at, individual proponents. Last week we talked about Patrice Lumumba, that context, understanding, how the nuanced reality of engaging Marxist-Leninist ideology on the continent, and how every Pan-Africanist, because you'll hear that often, people try to say that every Pan-Africanist on the continent of Africa, and Nkrumah and others, everyone were, hardcore Marxist-Leninists. And then I, of course, introduced, actually last week, we did, the week before we did Patrice Lumumba in the context of, our film. But last week we talked about Amilcar Cabral, who really gets into the particulars, right? The nuances around understanding that every Pan-Africanist is not tied and roped into this Eastern Bloc Marxist-Leninist ideology, that we do know how to engage and struggle specific to our oppression. And so don't buy into that. And so, you know, this is the third individual proponent, and then we're going to go back to looking at organizational bodies that express Pan-Africanism. But this is an important point. And the role of women, the role of women's liberation in the context of our struggle. I think for all the women on here, you know, and that very often we are pitted against the struggle, in the sense that if you're talking about the specific ways in which oppression, colonialism, imperialism, neocolonialism impact capitalism, really impact African women, all of a sudden you're a feminist, and that's something separate, and we've got to keep our eye on the goal, the larger struggle. So what I'm going to address here is the philosophy and the position of Thomas Sankara, in light of the fact that he recognized that the struggle for women's liberation is not separate from our struggle for liberation. It is one in the same, because I'm just going to be real blunt, because the pathology of colonialism and imperialism and its constructs, racism, and so on and so forth, come with a particular patriarchal, chauvinistic, and misogynistic strand that has been imposed and even internalized by our people, right? No place in the world is more patriarchal, and historically more patriarchal, exclusively patriarchal, and sexist and chauvinist than the European cultural context, okay? That's not to say this never existed in Africa. It certainly existed in Africa too, but Europe is where misogyny blossomed, okay? This very potent hatred of women blossomed. That's impossible for it to have blossomed on the African continent, given our antiquity and the fact that women are essentially the bearers of the matrilineal line, right? So, so we come from African culture is rooted in the, and I would say that leadership and the elevation of women, if you know the history, right? So that being said, we were the freest of the ancient world, African women, and you can go all across the continent, not just ancient Kemet and Egypt, to see this. We have women in the struggle for freedom and liberation right up to the colonial period and the transatlantic slave trade. You know, you don't just have to go see the Woman King to see that, right? There's so much more out there, but it's typically not elevated. So I want to just give you this takeaway before I get into highlighting some points. One, just talking about Thomas Sankara. And so in the same way that I discussed Amilcar Cabral and his nuanced approach to our struggle, recognizing ethnic differences, recognizing that we had to go through a process in order to unify us in the struggle, particularly in Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, right? Recognizing that for African people, history must be a weapon and a tool of liberation. Culture must be a weapon and tool of liberation. Well, I'm going to do the same thing with Thomas Sankara, and the nuanced caveat or the nuanced lesson you should get out of this is understanding that while many will tell you that the liberation of women is separate from our struggle for liberation in a racist and xenophobic society or under neocolonialism. That is not true. What is true is that historically, the struggle for women has also been part of our liberation struggle. Okay. I mean, it's like, and this might be a little even more nuanced, but the contradiction in thinking that we should be liberated from white supremacy and culture, and while women should still be within our culture, group, ethnicity, nations, while women should still be subjugated and marginalized, is like thinking that when the United States and these colonists, you know, the peasant class that would become Americans, when they fight their revolution, it was okay to then subjugate the Black inhabitants, the African inhabitants of what would become the United States, right? So I want my liberation, but you stay right down there and let me keep my foot on you. There's no bigger contradiction. And so we exhibit this a lot. This is a problem. I think it's even almost taboo for me to speak about this in the context of us learning about our struggle for liberation as it is exemplified through Pan-Africanism. You know, because I always feel that tension, even when I get into the conversation about, well, what you talking about women for? Are you serious? When it comes to African people, we must talk about women. Okay, that is not, we are the progenitors of understanding a critical role and essential role in every African community on the face of the earth. Okay. And so we are obligated to understand that. We're obligated to understand that the oppression of women cannot be okay and exist in a space where we are struggling for our collective liberation, right? Internalizing that pathology that women should be subjugated is a very European worldview, okay? And we are engaging in ideological development and struggle primarily because, yes, we have internalized that as well. Okay, so I just want to start out really quickly and talk about Thomas Sankara in particular, so that you all know, just for those of you who don't know who he is, you have some understanding of who he is. So Thomas Sankara, and I'm reading from the book just briefly, the bio, but you have this book, those of you who are actually in the course, you have this book in audio form. And I'm so happy about that, because who knew, right? You don't have to buy it, you just listen, you don't have to read it, you can listen to it. So you have this book in audio form in the WhatsApp group, and that will serve as our material for this past week and going forward. We'll still be engaging this in particular until we move on to the other proponents and back to the organizational bodies that we're going to cover. But Thomas Sankara was the central leader of the Popular Democratic Revolution in the West African country of Burkina Faso, formerly Upper Volta, from 1983 to 1987. Born in 1949, Sankara entered military school in 1966, one of the few avenues for young people of his generation to receive higher education. Continuing his training in Madagascar in early 1970s, he was strongly influenced by a massive uprising of workers and students that toppled the country's neo-colonial government. It was in Madagascar that he was introduced to Marxism by students who had been part of the May 1968 pre-revolutionary upsurge in France. A lieutenant in Upper Volta's army, Sankara came to prominence as a military leader during a border conflict in Mali, in December 1974. And in January 1975, over the next several years, he linked up with other junior officers and soldiers dissatisfied with the oppressive conditions in the country perpetuated by the imperialist rulers in Paris and elsewhere. With the support of local landlords, businessmen, tribal chieftains, and politicians, Sankara was jailed briefly in 1982 after resigning a government post to protest the regime's repressive policies. In wake of a coup, Sankara was appointed prime minister in January 1983. Sankara's uncompromising course, calling on the people of Upper Volta and elsewhere in Africa to advance their interests against the exploiters at home and abroad, leading to growing conflict and prominent forces in the government. In May 1983, Sankara and some of his supporters were arrested by President Jean-Baptiste, I can't pronounce his name, or Drago, on August 4th, 1983. Some 250 soldiers marched from an insurgent military base in Po to the capital of Ouagadougou. This act sparked a popular uprising in which the Ouagadougou regime was overthrown. Sankara became president of the new National Council of Revolution, opening 4 years of revolutionary activity by peasants, workers, women, and youth described in the following pages. So Thomas Sankara was assassinated, and the revolutionary government was overthrown in a coup by Blaise Compaoré on October 15, 1987. So that's just a brief history if you don't know about Burkina Faso and Thomas Sankara. I want to go really briefly. This is just going to be a little bit of a guided lecture to highlight some things. So as you go through the text or in the audio form, I want to just highlight these things on Thomas Sankara's position, because like Amilcar Cabral, Thomas Sankara also would understand that there was a critical role for African women to play in the liberation struggle for the nation. And in Guinea-Bissau, I had the honor, I think I mentioned it last week, of meeting one of the women who were armed militants in the country many years ago. But Thomas Sankara had pretty much the same position on women, that this was part of the struggle. This was not separate from our liberation struggle. And I think that this is something that we constantly hear, particularly in this context, like in the United States. You know, if a African woman, if a Black woman begins to talk about the oppression of women in a society like this, someone will quickly say, well, you know, like, that's a different struggle, or that you're a feminist, or that we got to keep our eye on the larger struggle. Well, that is part of the larger struggle. The indoctrination of our people by white supremacy and culture makes that a characteristic of our struggle. Okay. So it's not separate. And this is an ongoing problem and issue, particularly if you are in the social media realm, because this is frequently seen as, you know, sort of taking us off our path and talking about women and feminists and that. No, not at all. Okay. And that idea, or even the idea of using feminism as a slander, put your armors on, sisters, women, on this lecture. You should be able to be immune to that, meaning this: it shouldn't land, because that's the wrong stick. Like Malcolm said, that's the wrong stick to use. No African woman has to be a feminist. You know why? Because we're the progenitors of women who were in leadership positions and fought for the rights of women as human beings long before a feminist movement ever even existed. Okay. And so, a more concrete understanding of what I'm saying. So the struggle for women to also be liberated in the context of our freedom struggles means that when we struggle, there must be particular attention paid to the nature of oppression that African women, that Black women face. This is very important. Otherwise, you're not dealing with our oppression. Okay. And so what would that look like? That would look like, say, for example, an organization that also has a woman's wing. Okay. So just to give an example, I was part of a political organization, and there was the organization and the body of the organization, but within the organization, there was also a women's union. And the women's union was meant to help African women in that organization organize and strategize and come up with tactics that address our particular form of oppression as both African people and as women. Okay. Now, the brothers, the men in the organization, were able to sit in on and contribute in some ways to the women's union, but not vote in the women's union. Why? Because it is men who engage in the oppression of women. And yes, our men engage in the oppression of women. Okay. And they too have been indoctrinated by white supremacy and culture, by patriarchy, which is a product of the capitalist, imperialist, and the colonial paradigm, okay, that has been imposed on us. So yes, our men have to consciously engage in struggling against their own inclination to act oppressively towards women. Okay, this is how this manifests. I mean, it's like understanding this small thing. Recently there was a murder of a young black man by 5 Black cops in California, Tyre Nichols. So a lot of you probably know about that, even on the continent, wherever you are, because there was such an outrage about it, an uproar about it. There were 5 Black cops, but do you think they knew how to internalize racism? Absolutely. It's not far-fetched. Just because they were Black did not mean that they could not be the agents and the perpetrators of racism. And very often we are the agents. This is why we engage in reprogramming ourselves, ideological development. And likewise, yes, men can engage in the oppression of women, and misogyny and chauvinism and sexism within our community. Simply because they are also Black and African does not mean that they're immune to perpetuating something that may not have thrived and originated from their culture going way back. Okay, they can and they do. So particular attention has to be paid to this issue, because I don't know a group of African people, a community of African people, a nation of African people where African women are not disproportionately the sustaining force of our reality. I don't know where. Oh, it's Nashville, Tennessee. I'm sorry. He had something saying he was a Cali, whatever. Okay, so yes, Nashville, Tennessee. Sorry, correction. He was murdered. Tyre Nichols was murdered in Nashville, Tennessee. But that being said, look, the United States. But that being said, African women are unlike, there's really no comparison historically and in terms of the position of women in their society that parallels that of African and Black women in our own communities, okay? I've seen it, I've lived it, I live it. And so I know that that is real, okay? And we tend to have a major contradiction in mass movements and mass organizing, where we will say, hey, our focus is on the larger issues, racism and white supremacy. And you guys with that woman stuff, you get, you know, you're gonna have to wait, okay? You're gonna have to wait, right? And very often our movements have been very patriarchal, meaning the men are the figures, the people you see, but the masses are the women. Okay, the masses are the women, and that can be seen on the continent, that can be seen in the diaspora over and again, and that's a problematic situation, and it's an issue. Okay, so Thomas Sankara is probably one of the most progressive thinkers, leaders, Pan-Africanists, and African nationalists that you can find on this particular issue. Okay, he breaks it down for the men to internalize it. I would say second to him would probably be Sekou Touré, okay, from Guinea. He is probably just as progressive in understanding that it is men who have to consciously decide to struggle against their inclination to perpetuate chauvinism and misogyny in their own communities, because that in and of itself is part and parcel of our colonial indoctrination by European groups, okay? European, you know, I don't even want to get into, I like to stay on us, African people, but if you understood or you researched European culture and society, women never had position or status. Even when they had position in terms of name, they had no power, okay? And you know, like I said to one elder, he says to me, Dr. T, I'm giving it away by saying that. He says to me, Dr. T, all of Africa isn't matriarchal and matrilineal. And I said, I know, but all of Europe is. I mean, all of Europe is patriarchal, okay? Meaning European culture is absolute in the fact that men are the top and women are always perpetually on the bottom. In the African context, not so much, not necessarily. And we can go from, you know, the beginning of our recorded history all across the continent and through into the Americas and see not African women being given the right to do whatever, but taking the role and the position without being told to do that, because that is who historically we are. So, you know, let me be very clear about what I'm saying. The person said to me, Africa is not all matriarchal, matrilineal, right? And I responded, no, it's not all matriarchal, matrilineal. Patriarchy and matriarchy. However, Europe has always been absolute in patriarchal domination, okay? It is part of European culture to only see men as equal to other men in every sense of the word, okay? So I wanted to be clear that there's diversity in Africa on that level. And when you see us expressing this absolute domination of women, you have to question. I even know some ethnic groups that boast about some of that, African ethnic groups, that I'm not going to call any names, but I'm going to say, they will say, oh no, this is how our culture is. And then if you dig into the history, you may find out that not necessarily. Somehow their encounter with Europeans and colonialism coincide with some of the things that are accepted as now part of the culture, in terms of seeing women as marginalized or seeing women as children, okay, and subordinate to men, not as complementary and equal partners in this thing called life, right? So I'm going to go right to some quotes, but let me just say something. Yeah, if you're in the WhatsApp group, you'll see that I posted, but just go on YouTube also. Yes, the audiobook is on YouTube. I posted the link, but it's in YouTube, so you can access it yourself. I see I'm and thank you, Chris Emmanuel, for correcting me. If you go on WhatsApp and you type in, I mean, not WhatsApp, I'm so sorry. Well, it's in our WhatsApp group. So those of you who are actually in the WhatsApp group, you'll see it. But if you go into YouTube, you will see and type this in, you'll see the book pop up, the version. Very important, because I think this is, this particular contradiction is very problematic in our community. You know, it's why you can see, you know, 2 African and Black people being murdered, 1 man, 1 woman, and hear a lot about one and hear nothing about the other. And at the same time, the people who are out in mass are African women. Okay, very, very, very problematic. So this is from a piece of this book early in I'll tell you what, page 30. So when you're listening to it, this is about the specific character of women's oppression, according to Thomas Sankara. The specific character of women's oppression, women's fate is bound up with that of the exploited male. This interdependence arises from the exploitation that both men and women suffer, exploitation that binds them together historically. This should not, however, make us lose sight of the specific reality of women's situation. The condition of their lives are determined by more than economic factors, and they show that women are victims of specific oppression. The specific character of this oppression cannot be explained away by equating different situations through superficial and childish simplifications. It is true that both the woman and the male worker are condemned to silence by their exploitation. But under the current system, the worker wife is also condemned to silence by her worker husband. In other words, in addition to exploitation common to both of them, women must confront a particular set of relations that exist between them and men, relations of conflict and violence that use physical differences as their pretext. It's clear that the difference between the sexes is a feature of human society. It's also clear that this difference determines the particular relations that prevent us from viewing women, even in the framework of economic production, as simply female workers. Privileged relations, perilous relations. The net result is that women's reality constitutes an ongoing problem. The male uses the complex nature of these relations as an excuse to sow confusion among women. He takes advantage of all the shrewdness that class exploitation has to offer in order to maintain his domination over women. This is the same method used elsewhere by men to rule over other men. They succeed in imposing the idea that certain men, by virtue of their family origin and birth, or by divine right, were superior to others. This was the basis for the feudal system. Their men managed to enslave whole peoples in this way. They use their origins or arguments based on their skin color as a supposedly scientific justification to rule over those who were unfortunate enough to have skin of a different color. That's colonial rule. That's apartheid. We must pay a close attention to the situation of women because it pushes the best of them to talk of war of the sexes, when what we really have is a war of social groups and of classes that should simply be waged together with men and women complementing each other. We have to say frankly that it is the attitude of men that makes such confusion possible. That in turn paves the way for the bold assertions made by feminism, some of which have not been without value in the fight that men and women are waging against oppression. This fight is one we can and will win if we understand that we need one another and are complementary. And finally, if we understand that we are condemned to being complementary. For the time being, we have no choice but to recognize that male behavior made up of vanity, irresponsibility, arrogance, and violence of all kind towards women can no way result in coordinated action against women's oppression. That can be said of these attitudes, which can sink to the level of stupidity, and which in reality are nothing but a safety valve for oppressed males who, through brutalizing their wives, hope to regain some of the human dignity denied them by the system of exploitation. This male stupidity is called sexism, machismo. It includes moral and intellectual impoverishment of all types, even acknowledged or not. Physical powerlessness, which compels politically conscious women to consider it their duty to fight on two fronts. To fight and win, women must identify with the oppressed layers and classes of society, workers, peasants, and others. The man, however, no matter how oppressed he is, has another human being to oppress, his wife. Saying this means without any doubt asserting a terrible fact. When we talk about the disgusting system of apartheid, for example, our thoughts and emotions turn to the exploited and oppressed blacks. But we, unfortunately, the Black woman who has to endure her husband, this man who, armed with his passbook, allowed himself all kinds of reprehensible escapades before returning home to the woman who, suffering and destitute, has waited for him with dignity. We should keep in mind too, that the white woman in South Africa, aristocratic, no doubt, materially satisfied. She is unfortunately a tool for the pleasure of the lecherous white man. The only thing these men can do to forget their crimes against Blacks is to get wildly drunk from bestial sexual behavior. Moreover, there is no lack of examples of men, even though progressive, who live cheerfully in adultery, yet would be ready to murder their wives on the merest suspicion of infidelity. Many men in Burkina seek so-called consolation in the arms of prostitutes and mistresses of all kinds. This is not to mention the irresponsible husbands whose wages serve only to keep mistresses and make the bars richer. And what can be said of those little men, also progressive, who get together and talk lewdly about women they have taken advantage of. They believe that this way they'll be able to measure up to other men, even humiliate some of them by seducing married women. In reality, such men are pitiful and insignificant. They would not even enter our discussion if it were not for the fact that their criminal behavior undermines the morale and virtue of many women of great merit who would have been highly useful to our revolution. So yes, he went there, Thomas Sankara, and he goes there. He gets into the nuanced aspects of our struggle. And I don't, listen, I hear a whole lot of truth in what he just said about the particular, that section is called, it's on page 30, it's called The Specific Character of Women's Oppression. Thomas Sankara is the upright man, and he named Burkina Faso land of the upright people. So his criticism is nuanced, specific, not so gentle, very direct. But what he establishes is that those that I just described, those microaggressions, aggressions, oppressive behavior by men in our community on women, that is not separate from our struggle, because as I ended it, what did I say? Or what did Thomas Sankara say? He said, we can't ignore this. Why? Because this impacts those women that were useful to us in our struggle, in our revolution, right? It undermines the morale and virtue of many women of great merit who would have been highly useful to our revolution. So, we can see that, in the United States in particular, our freedom struggles, organized freedom struggles, the ranks are the masses, or the masses are the women. The hierarchy, very often male dominated. A lot of contradictions around this very point in issue. A contradiction we haven't dealt with, and a contradiction that will probably condemn us to not having the kind of freedom that we want. Why? Because the masses of our people everywhere we are women. Let's be very clear. I mean, I would think that's a revolutionary statement to say that our women are met in the masses in every African community. Our women are the foot soldiers. Our women are the thinkers. And to think that the equality and equity for women within our own communities is separate from our struggle for freedom, our struggle for liberation, our struggle to achieve Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is unity. You can't undermine the woman next to you and then talk about Pan-Africanism, right? Because Pan-Africanism fully realized means both African men and African women, Black men and Black women together, right? Not just advancing Pan-Africanism, but being the beneficiaries of Pan-Africanism. So go ahead and, listen to the book. Very important. Stop those around you who think that the oppression of women is okay while they talk about us collectively struggling against white supremacy and racism and xenophobia, because that is problematic. That is a contradiction. It makes I've been in organized struggle and political organizations where we engage in organized struggle. And you know what happens? The sisters leave. They go away because all kinds of things happen behind the scenes that take our women out of that space of engaging in deliberate and organized struggle for our people. We can't have that. Okay. We can't have that. We can't stand for that. And we have to resist the unspoken, the alignment that is created when we dare to speak on the position of women in our community. Here in the United States, Black women are getting murdered by the hour. Okay, murdered by the hour. And we still have brothers who will tell you like, oh, don't talk about that. Don't, whatever. Listen, talk about it. It is part of our liberatory process. We need to make our own communities and our own ranks the safest place for us to be. And we can't accept anything less. We know we're going to have struggles in the world, but we have to understand that our base, our communities, our homes, our reality has to be the safest place for us to be so that we can organize and struggle against those issues that are external. So don't give into that, even though you may feel it, because it's all around us, right? Why are you talking about women? Why are you talking, that's separate. We gotta, listen, some of those brothers need to fight white supremacy and culture the way I hear and see some of them fighting Black women on social media or talking about Black women on social media. You can't be a part of the struggle. You can't advance Pan-Africanism and hate and dominate and marginalize and disrespect African or Black women. And that's not separate from the struggle. It's one and the same, okay? I think one of the things, and this is important for me to do this lecture because one of the things that is characteristic of our struggle is that we'll study everybody else. And the ones who have a position on this very critical issue, we don't study the Sekou Touré's. We don't study the Thomas Sankars. We don't study the Amilcar Cabrals in the way that we should, right? Or we'll study them, but we will not address their position on women that actually could be applicable to our current and present condition and situation, right? So I'm gonna leave it there. I think this is I'm not sure if this is our last session, but I'll still be sharing stuff until they close the group. And if we have one more session, I'm not looking at the syllabus right now, but if we have one more session, then I'll go back to, because I found a fabulous image today of that I had in my own little archive of the participants of the fifth Pan-African Congress. And it was something I think you should see. So I'm going to actually post it in the group by Monday so that you can see it. All right, let me just look at the final comments and then I'm gonna get off of here, already over. Okay, so the last one. All right, I got you. So yeah, I'm gonna post the fifth Pan-African Conference image and maybe some notes with it too. I'm reading your comments earlier. We do away with I hear you, Siriam. Sam. Say Ram. I hear you. I agree. No, I don't know the French version of the document. I'm so sorry, Pascal. Someone direct messaged me and said I'm in camera. Join the group again. I don't know if somebody can translate. We need to get a translator for this part of the program when we do these lectures on Saturday, because I would love, I have someone who really could translate. So let's see. I don't know. Let me talk to folks in I Love Black People to see if we can have some of this translated when we do our sessions. Okay. How to join WhatsApp group. Thanks. With the class ending, can I still? Yeah, so I answered that question already. Go on YouTube and search for this title. So the title is Women's Liberation and the African Freedom Struggle, Thomas Sankara, and it will certainly pop up. And yeah, so, you know, you can listen to the whole book, but it is in English there. And for those of you who are in the States or who deal with, you know, various online sources to get it, it's not an expensive book. I don't know the price off the bat. Let me just see something. It's not an expensive book, but it is one that one might want to have. Okay. It's published by Pathfinder, and it's pretty affordable. I think literally in US dollars, it says $5, but I don't think that I paid $5 for it. I might pay just a little bit more for it. Okay. So thank you all for hanging in there all the way to the end. I know I see people come in and out because of probably their internet. Let me see something. It says new replies. Picture guy. A man supposed to do. Man up and take care of his family together with the woman. What is wrong with that? Anyway, listen. So issues, I think a lot of them are addressed here. We are complements to each other. So, you know, there is a saying post-slavery, not even post-slavery, in the context of slavery in the United States, that the African woman was the slave of the slave. So even when the man was dominated, he had someone to step on. Just to the comment about, you know, how are men supposed to man up? You man up, you take care of the family. However, you work in concert with your partner, who is a woman. You do not dominate her. You do not do what is done to you in larger society to her. That is what Thomas Sankara is saying. Right? So in the context of what I just said about the African woman, the Black woman, in the context of slavery, is the slave of the slave. Even when the man who worked in the field came back to the slave quarters, even he had someone to dominate, and it was her, it was us, it was African women, it was Black women. And so we have to consciously struggle against that. You know, Sekou Touré is also The Women in Society, the book is called, by Sekou Touré. It talks about sexism being something that men must struggle against and eradicate. It's not necessarily the job of women. It is the job of men to struggle against sexism, because they, after all, are the perpetuators of it. Right. So, you know, that is very important. Sekou Touré is very progressive on this particular issue. Obviously, so is Thomas Sankara. The society we're living in today is not progressive on this issue. Okay. But you should just go away with understanding that contradiction, which is pervasive. And I think it's unfortunate that even for this course, that when I do the final lecture, I speak on it. This should have, and this is my criticism of myself in the context of teaching this ideological development course. This should have always been, I just put it in last semester, last cycle. But I did not necessarily cover it in this way. This should have always been part of the study, the ideological development, because this plays every single day in all of our interactions, almost in every area of life, and it stifles. We're already progressive African women. We're going to show up and we're going to do, and we give the most, really. That being said, it stifles even that, okay? And so it should have always been a part of this curriculum from its inception, because I think there's so many people who think they are race people in this struggle, Pan-Africanists, all of that, but have this deep contradiction that keeps us back there undeveloped. Okay. And so you cannot be in the struggle, in the freedom struggle that involves Black people, that involves African people, that involves Pan-Africanism, and dominate, exploit, oppress, marginalize, disrespect African women at all. It is a contradiction, right? It's a complete contradiction. Okay, it is, and that's what Thomas Sankara is saying. This struggle is one and the same, because the same way racism influences us and allowed 5 Black men to beat a Black man to death, that same racism, that construct of capitalism called sexism, called misogyny, also influences us, and it undermines our collective progress. You understand? So all right, I saw somebody say something salty in here, but I have to end here. I'm way over. African men will never be free if African women are not. Absolutely, Damani. Greetings, far and wide, Africans. Apologies. Okay, no problem. Thank you for joining us. I can't pronounce your name, but I don't want to mispronounce it, but I saw you. Okay. The person why patriarchy is me. Okay, so I think that I saw somebody say something like this is an attack on patriarchy or something like that. Yeah, it is. Okay, yes, it is. It's an attack on patriarchy for sure. Oh, this attack on masculinity is just ridiculous. I would be, because it's violence. What is this? Hold on a second. Okay. This attack on masculinity is just ridiculous. Right. So what people are also calling masculinity is just really not masculinity, right? For us as African people, we don't really need to talk about masculinity or femininity and all of that, because I do really think, and I have to do the research even a little deeper, but those terms, I don't know, they don't really feel organic to us. To me, so when I talk about the role of African women, and the role we take in our struggle, I always think about Sojourner Truth saying, "Ain't I a woman?" Right? Those of you who know who Sojourner Truth was, a survivor of the institution of slavery, who freed her own children once they were captured. Her children were born free in soul slavery, and chose and liberate them, free them. I always like to say about her, she is the person that other groups of women cite as their source. We are always the source. This is not outside of our culture for African women to be assertive, but she is a source of white feminists. White feminists go to her. Model ourselves, African women, after any white woman's movement or any white woman's thinking. And so when she talks about, ain't I a woman? I always argue that she didn't say, ain't I feminine? Because she certainly was not feminine by their standards. In that same speech, Ain't I a Woman, she talks about working as hard as any person and eating as much as any man, and being a large woman, standing 6 feet tall. So I don't know about all of this femininity and masculinity stuff, but I do know about what it means to be a human being and what it means to engage in collective work and struggle and not political, educated me on this. However, in that organization where we were engaging issues like this and did have a woman's wing, it didn't mean that the brothers did not try it. They tried it. They tried all the time. what is different about the brothers in this political organization that I was in, who were educated, is that they had the tools to struggle against their own contradictions because they were studying, right? Sekou Touré, Thomas Sankara, and others who speak and address this issue. That's the difference. The only difference was that they had a source of knowledge that could help with their contradictions. Okay? It didn't mean that their little, aches and interact sisters and all of that did not exhibit that they were struggling and that they had issues with sexism, chauvinism, and even misogyny. They did. As I said to someone, I'm not going to call the organization's name that I come from, but I'll say, I was talking to another older member many years later. People think that this party, this political party, this organization, that they're not sexist. The men are more sexist. They're the most sexist. The difference is they have the tools, right? So this lecture is for, to give them tools to understand how to navigate this, that it is recognized. It's not, what I'm saying is not new. Thomas Sankara died in 1987. He wrote this long ago. He was engaged with Touré, many others, but those are two notable who had very progressive position and understood how we struggle against this. Right? Just in the same way we struggle against racist pathology, just the same way we've got to struggle against xenophobia. When we talk about xenophobia, we're talking about African and Black people doing that to African and Black people, right? So ideological development and training is for that purpose, to help you resolve your contradictions so that you become more useful to our struggle and our objective of achieving Pan-Africanism. Okay, so that's it. The closing lecture. Thank you all so much for hanging in there to the end. I will, hopefully you'll stay active in I Love Black People, and keep working for our Black people as aging and for our people and achieving Pan-Africanism through action. Okay, I am because we are, and I want everyone to stay safe. Okay. Let me look at the last little comments. Okay, thank you. Yeah, of course you are. I mean, so then you should know. Exactly, Damani. So we are from the same cloth, I'll say that. Right. Right. That's Damani again. I'm saying correct too about Sojourner Truth. Yes, thank you so much, from Ghana. Exactly. We can't, I'm not doing the job if I'm not addressing this. And so that was my own criticism of my own performance in the last 3 years that we have been doing this, that this should have always been an essential part of the curriculum, and I'm just adding it. Anyway, stay safe, everyone. I am because we are, and I know I'm way over. I apologize.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Wright, for this wonderful lecture. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I am because we are.